Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to our the Sueur City Council meeting dated July 22, 2024. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council members, you well presented with your packet over the weekend. Hopefully you had a chance to look over tonight's agenda. This time I'll entertain any motions to approve tonight's agenda. So moved. Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Tui seconded. Any other comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to public hearing. At this time, I will entertain a motion to open. If you want to. Oh, presentation. Of course, Mr. Beanfang was going to give a presentation on that first. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead of you. So, you want to introduce him?
Sure, I'll just introduce you. I'll give Corey this. Mayor, members of council, we got city engineer Corey Beanfang and water wastewater engineer Mike Saunders from AE2 West here tonight to give a presentation. I'm sure they'll touch on this, but the presentation itself and the public hearing will be conducted now. And then item 8A on the regular agenda will be the requested city council action in response to the presentation tonight. I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. So Mike and I are gonna tag team this here tonight. I got a couple slides that I'll introduce it. So really the topic of conversation tonight is all wastewater. And throughout this, we're going to combine and discuss kind of conjointly two projects. One is the control equipment and SCADA for the wastewater sanitary sewer system. And then the other one is the North 4th Street 2025 street and utility project. As I like to do, I like to just kind of capture a summary timeline. And these two projects, at least in concept and analysis, originated almost a year ago. Kind of starting here with the condition assessment of the SCADA and controls equipment. I think what we're going to talk about in a little greater detail is this, that equipment is hard to maintain, it's difficult to source, and so there's some definite needs there in regards to the controls and the SCADA system. And then around that same time, we started the framework of the 10-year street utility plan, that CIP plan, adopted there late last year and recognized that North 4th was the most critical corridor. So then in the course of the next few months here through late winter into the spring, we were continuing to study and evaluate these projects. The SCADA controls created a draft facility plan, and right around that March timeframe was identified that at least in that project scope, that it wasn't going to be able to be funded through the PFA funding, which we'll talk about on the next slide, but basically recognizing didn't score enough points in its own, as its own project to be able to move forward with the funding mechanism that the city has identified. At that same time, there was a recommendation for us to pursue that same funding through the PFA for the North 4th Street project based on the financial advisor, Shannon Sweeney. And as part of that, in May, we reached out to the MPCA, and they recognized that collectively, the two projects have been scoring enough points to be able to move forward. So tonight is all premised around a combined SCADA controls 2025 sanitary sewer project. So then in the course of the last few months here, we've been coordinating with the MPCA and recognizing a joint project, this wastewater controls project in North 4th Street, and really brings us tonight is a required step as part of that funding to present in a public hearing setting the facility plans. And there's two facility plans. One is related to the SCADA controls, that's been finalized here in July, and then the other is related to the 2025 street project, that feasibility plan I presented a couple meetings ago. So tonight the action is then to conduct that public hearing. We're doing a short presentation ahead of that. What this is really all premised around is the financial components of the project, and really focused on the Clean Water Revolving Fund, which is the fund that supports wastewater sanitary sewer improvement projects. And the benefit that we've been able to identify is that together as one project, the projects both score enough points to be funded through this program, through the PFA. You might recall we use the PFA for the drinking water side, that's what funded the newest project, the Well 8 project. And so the value of this is lower than market rate interest loans. So over the course of the project, obviously those savings through the interest. And the PFA funding is pretty encompassing as far as what you're able to use those funds for. got a list of their construction, engineering, equipment, machinery, bond issuance, so they're valuable in that regard. Other funding sources that at least the forestry projects intending to pursue is the drinking water, we talked about that, the utility enterprise funds, LRIP, and that was one of the benefits too with the North Forestry project. Because of the LRP funding, there's some prevailing wage and some other requirements that PFA brings. We had already made that commitment through the LRP, so the advancement of the forestry project, kind of marriage with the SCADA project to use this PFA was just really logical. It didn't have a lot of detriment that way. Special assessment chapter 429, we're going to continue that process, the series of the next few meetings, the turn back funds and the bonds. So tonight, as part of that then is the facilities plan. And Mike Saunders, I'd like to introduce him. He's going to talk about the SCADA and the controls, just go over the project, you know, what's the detail of that, a little bit on the schedule, and then I'll come back and finish with the forestry.
Thanks for having me here. As Joe said, my name is Mike Saunders. I work with AE2S. We've been doing some water and wastewater work for the city and also INC, which is instrumentation and controls. So I've been working closely with Al Dostal at AE2S on this project. So I'll just kind of go into a little bit of detail. And I think it should be noted that this is the wastewater controls in SCADA. So in order to qualify for the Clean Water Revolving Fund, we had to pull out all the sanitary related controls in SCADA and not the drinking water side. So I just listed here is wastewater controls in SCADA for the sanitary and then the wastewater treatment facility. So it's a little bit tough to see, but on the map on the right of the slide, the green pins are the locations of the lift stations around the collection system at the wastewater treatment facility. So there's 5 sanitary lift station control panels, Henderson Road lift station, Mayo Park lift station 4, 6, and 9. It's important to note here, we did have Mayo Park included as a lift station to do rehab, but with the recent flooding, we're actually pulling that out and we're addressing that separately, working with the city on that. Also, we have 4 wastewater treatment facility control panels located at the pin where it says WWTF. So there's 2 control panels related to like general control and alarming at the facility itself, and then there's 1 dedicated to biosolids drying, and then the centrifuge. And outside of all this, we also have SCADA software and servers. So SCADA is supervisory data and acquisition system. So it takes all your inputs and all your alarms and everything that city staff needs to know kind of remotely to address certain situations. If there's a urgency high level at a lift station, they need to know that. They're not going to always be there. So that SCADA system lets operators know that. And then it can also log and collect data as well. So the whole point of this project is basically a lot of the PLC and SCADA equipment is obsolete. It still works, but if a PLC went down, it'd be difficult to source that PLC. And then there's also going to be less and less support from Allen Bradley is the manufacturer of the PLCs, and there's going to be less and less support based on the age of the PLCs. So it's basically there's just a risk to continue to use these if they fail, as they'll be lead times will be higher or longer to source these PLCs, and there's just going to be more risk going on. So, you know, working with city and city staff, the decision was to be made to upgrade these control panels to new PLCs, some control panels, and then a new SCADA system. So just to go in just a little bit of detail, so I basically explained a lot of this. There's also a cyber security risk with using these old the PLC and the SCADA system, because there's just going to be less support that Allen Bradley has with these systems. And there's been a conscious effort from the EPA and the MPCA. They really want to make sure cybersecurity is covered. So on the right side here, on the right side of the PowerPoint, on the top left is that's an image of a control panel at the wastewater treatment facility. So don't need to go into too much detail on what's there, but there's an HMI screen that the operators can control from or see alarms, and then there's some switches to control equipment. On the top right, that's a lift station control panel. So driving around the city, you might notice these. And then on the bottom there, so SCADA isn't really one thing. It's, you know, different computers or workstations, and then a network that basically brings in all the information from these lift stations into one system. So city staff can, you know, see how the systems are operating and then receive alarms remotely. So there's not too much else to discuss here, and the facility plan goes into more detail on what is actually replaced at each system. Most of the lift station control panels are replaced, but then we go into detail and actually look at specific components within all the lift stations at the wastewater treatment facility and just replacing the items that need to be and not just the whole panel, just to save for cost savings. I think that's mainly all I have for now. I think there'll be Q&A maybe at the end if you guys have any questions.
So within the packet, it was noticed that there was a facility plan related to SCADA, and then we have a facility plan related to the 2025 project. That 2025 project feasibility report is exactly the same as what was authorized 2 meetings ago. Just felt for sake of transparency and completeness, we re-included that. But the 2025 street utility project is focused on 4th Street and focused on that underground utility replacement as well as the failing surface. And where we gained a lot of points and credibility in our wastewater project was the recognition of the sanitary sewer, the age of it, and the fact that it was clay pipe and the I&I reduction. So MPCA looks very favorably at the PFA on I&I reduction, which we anticipate as we're replacing that clay sewer, those services with the new PVC. So that's where this project did aid a lot in the advancement of both of these collectively. The overhead, the electric underground conversion, the pedestrian facility upgrade. So this is exactly what we've been talking about and planning for. As part of that facility plan, we did have to bring in some requirements that aren't typically a part of a feasibility report. There's alternatives consideration. And so there, you know, always with any alternative goes in a project, you can do nothing, recognizing that that's going to continue to fail, continue to not, you know, meet the intent of those improvement plans. Anytime you're focusing in on any one utility, in this case, it's the wastewater, it's a sanitary sewer, there's an obligation to look at what is it just to look like just to replace that sewer, just the sanitary itself. And oftentimes that replacement could be utilized in a trenchless type installation. There's a recognition that there's less surface disturbance, but in that case, that's actually a detriment to us because the surface is of the condition that it's failed and deteriorated. So it's an additional cost to do trenchless, and it doesn't address our full surfacing needs. And so then we really fall down at the bottom there, that open trench, that full utility replacement, that full street replacement addresses all the infrastructure needs. This is mostly costly, but it does all encompassing then address those needs. So then just a slide on the estimated cost. So the controls and SCADA costs, that's all sanitary sewer, very logical there. Mike's put that together, kind of framed around those infrastructure needs based on those different controls, whether it be the lift stations or how it's there at the wastewater treatment plant. So kind of follow your way across the screen there, left to right, got a total of about 1.6 million. And then the North 4th Street utility project, this is straight out of the feasibility report, but really what we're focusing in on is the sanitary sewer costs. That's going to be the eligible clean water revolving fund costs. So kind of collectively, we're around that 2.7 million of funding that we would be looking to have funded through the PFA, through the clean water revolving fund. So then really where this gets us to is tonight is a required step for us to satisfy the facility plan checklist. Through the MPCA, we've been given a drop dead here of submitting that checklist with those facility plans by the end of August. And so offering ourselves a little contingency here, get that completed, authorized. That's really what's bringing us forward tonight and kind of guiding our path here. Once those plans are submitted and approved, then it's really Mike and I doing our own thing to deliver these two projects separately, the final design and the final, you know, approval of these projects through the Clean Water Revolving Fund. You don't actually get the funding until you're certified, until you bid, and then until you award. Both framed around the start of project next year, 2025 and 2026, then we'd be under construction. And then looking at a completion, I think both of us in the framework of summer, fall 2026. My project will just be a bit based on size and the wear course paving. Mike's gonna be, the SCADA project's gonna be based on equipment availability and just what that supply looks like to deliver that. So then really where this brings, so we've got our presentation here tonight. My understanding is Joe's gonna walk through this, but we'd open a public hearing, hear any comments from the public here tonight. We can close it and then engage in any discussion that the council wishes. So with that, happy to turn it back over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Corey. City Council, if there are questions.
I do. You said it's funded through the PFA. What does that mean? I wrote it down, funded through PFA.
Yep. So there's a department within the Minnesota Public Authorities. So there's funding that's set aside through the bonding that dedicates funding to, there is a grant opportunity for, low income or projects of critical need, or there's the funding through a low interest loan. So there's a process here that provides funding both for drinking water and clean water. So it's the MPCA that's going to be regulatory here for the Clean Water Fund and focused on wastewater and sanitary sewer improvement. So it's
what is the city looking to get from the PFA?
we're looking to get a low interest loan.
Okay, and that's where the bonds would come from?
Exactly right. So instead of city going out, working through Shannon Sweeney and securing a general obligation bond, I think is the term, and Joe can chime in here if I'm misspeaking, but in lieu of doing that through the process of the city through their own financing means, we would work through the PFA to secure the funding that would be dedicated then to fund the wastewater sanitary sewer improvements.
Okay, so the total cost then of both projects is about 9.7 million.
If you're talking total project cost, correct?
Right. Now, maybe I wrote this down, but the Clean Water Revolving Fund, $2.7 million. Is that a grant?
No, so that'd be the loan. So that would be of that 9.7, if you're taking total project costs. I've got it up on the screen here. So you got 8.6 plus 8.6. So actually you're going to be a little bit greater than that even, but of that total project cost, if you sum the two numbers there, the total and the total, what the Clean Water Revolving Fund is focusing on is the entirety of the SCADA project plus the sanitary sewer of the 2025 project. So that's at 2.7 million.
And that's low interest bonds?
That's correct. Yep, and the Clean Water Revolving Fund is what we're focused on here tonight, and that is only funding for the wastewater sanitary sewer improvements.
And if I might, so this kind of grew out of an internal conversation when we were talking with our bond agent, Shannon Sweeney, about financing for the North Fourth project. And I believe it was just on a call, he kind of said, well, what if we asked the PFA about, instead of going out to market for a bond for the entirety of the North Fourth project, if we could do a portion of it through the PFA and take advantage of a lower interest rate on the wastewater component. And so then the team started looking at it. And around the same time, we recognized that the SCADA project for wastewater was not going to score highly enough in order to be eligible for PFA. But if we combine the two projects together, SCADA and the wastewater component of North Fourth, both of which council had already authorized action to proceed with, then we could take advantage of lower interest rates for the wastewater component of North Fourth and also the wastewater component of the SCADA controls project. So that's how these two were connected. So, and going back in history, and this precedes my time here, but anytime we have an infrastructure project that we won't be paying cash for, and we need to borrow for it, typically a well project or a water tower, the PFA is a great option for all cities. And if you look at the list, it's public data. You go on MPFA website and look at all the projects. Depending on the type of project, the timeline, they'll assign it a score. And if you get so many enough points, you're eligible for a grant or a loan. If you don't get enough, then gotta wait your turn, or you've gotta find something to stick in there that will give us more points. And the water side, or the drinking water side of the PFA through the Minnesota Department of Health, they have different standards than the MPCA does in their scoring. And so the SCADA project for water scored enough points. The SCADA project for wastewater, according to PCA, not quite enough. And so this is effectively an exercise in creative thinking to try to get us a lower interest loan than what it would cost to go out to the bond market for these projects.
I just never saw 9 point, whatever it is, 9.6 or 10.2 total. Right? 1.6 and 8.6.
Yeah, and I think in the breakout isn't here, and I think it was on Corey's presentation on the June 10th meeting, but that 8.6 for the North 4th Street does not include the LRIP funding, does not include the $500,000 that's being contributed. So this is just straight cost, and it's used here to demonstrate that the sanitary, or otherwise known as the wastewater portion of that project, is $1.16 million. We're looking to lump that $1.16 million in with the 1.585 and do one PFA loan for that total, instead of going out to the private market and paying a higher interest rate for both of them.
This is the first time that these two projects have been combined in a presentation setting. So the number 10.2 wouldn't have been referenced, but that's the point of this slide here, is to bring together the most recent SCADA data based on the final facility plan prepared by A2S here, just within the last 2 months, based on us recognizing or having a path forward now in that project. And then that my number is consistent to what the feasibility report number was. And it's framework back. So the SCADA project will all be PFA, but the forestry project is going to have a whole bunch of funding, different sources. PFA, one of them, clean water, PFA clean water, PFA drinking water, LRIP, as Joe alluded to, enterprise funds, turn back funds. So there's a lot of funding in that 8.6 number.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, Mr. Fleer?
We just have a general question on the control system. How old are the existing SCADA controls?
It's just about when the wastewater plant was built. I know we have detail in their report, but roughly 20 years.
Okay, I was just wondering what length of a life cycle we can anticipate for the new control system, then approximately the same, or?
Yeah, I would say approximately the same, 20 years, 20 to 30 years. It's hard to say with new technology that's going to come out in the future, but that's the idea with these facility plans, is you're looking out.
So they wouldn't obsolete it, the manufacturer.
Likely not. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would estimate, just, hedging to get to probably what a lot of people are thinking is it's all technology based. So whether it's obsolete or not, within 15 years from now, we'll be having to have a serious conversation around, is this still the safest way to control our system? There will be technologies out there that will be much better. It will be harder and harder to find parts. So even though the technology works for us right now, they stopped making replacement parts
I
these
agree,
years ago.
100%.
So
I agree.
eBay
When
has.
they say it's a, what do you call that? It's a legacy product. That's not a good thing.
Yes. Right. Yeah, OEM is, yeah.
I was in manufacturing for
Yes,
years. You hear that word and it's like, oh, no.
You're calling all your buddies to try to find spare parts.
Anybody else have any other questions? Otherwise, Mr. Saunders, thank you very much for your technical information you shared with us. Also, Mr. Beanfang, and then Mr. Tui, thank you for your good question on the finance end of this. Mr. Roby, the clarity on the finance of this, I appreciate you explaining that to us. So with that said, is there anything else? Otherwise, we'll move into the.
I would ask for that, Mr. Mayor, that you would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
Exactly what I was going to ask. So at this time, I'll entertain any motion to open public hearing on this subject matter? Thank you, Councilmember Schrader. Councilmember Williams, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. With that said, I don't think we have anybody here for the open hearing. I don't think anybody's signed up for that.
No
So,
signatures.
with that said, I'll entertain a motion to close the open hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Williams, seconded. Any other discussion, comments, concerns? If not, this time we will close the open hearing on the wastewater treatment facility plan. Thank you. Which takes us into the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the city council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. These items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. Mr. Wood, you want to review these with us?
I would, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few items tonight. The first is approval of minutes from the July 8th, 2024 regular city council meeting. Second is approval of disbursements through today. Included in those disbursements are 3 items over $25,000. The first to the Sueur Company for an electric transformer, $104,925. Second to the Minnesota Department of Revenue for the June 2024 city sales tax, totaling $50,538. And finally to Neo Water Treatment for wastewater treatment material, $35,298.16. Item C, approve the fireworks permit for Giant Days. And item D, approved city support request for the 2024 Giant Days celebration.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on tonight's consent agenda?
Question about the fireworks, it's just one night, correct?
It is just one night, correct? Yes.
On his agenda, it's two.
Oh, it is.
Very valid.
We do know that there's an amended schedule coming out tomorrow because there was at least one other
Oops.
error on the schedule.
So which night is it, and Joe, that was?
Saturday night.
That they're applying for?
Saturday night.
Thank you.
Thank you for noticing that. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan.
Second.
Councilmember Junior seconded. Any other discussion, comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to public comment. I don't think we have anybody here to share anything. You didn't see anything on there? Okay. With that said, we will move past public comment. And that takes us into the city administrator's update. Mr. Roby, what do you have for us tonight?
A few items, Mr. Mayor. First, just an update on the flooding event. As always, public safety is number 1. Public infrastructure protection is number 2 priority. Update on streets and parks. Railroad Street, Water Street, Mayo Park, and River Park remain closed at this time. River Park will be opening this Saturday morning, the 27th at 9 a.m. Crews will be out there cleaning the park, removing silt, taking it to DEMCOM to be appropriately disposed of. Director Transberg has already communicated that to MnDOT, so MnDOT will be aware. Of course, MnDOT still has a 5-ton restriction on that road, so we're not seeing semi-traffic yet. Once that restriction lifts, I don't know if there's a timeline for them opening that restriction, but we'll start to see some trucks come back in. Mayo Park, there's not a timeline yet. It is not officially dewatered yet. Once the water is all receded completely out of Mayo Park, then we will be able to start the clock in 20 days and reopen Mayo Park. The bypass of the Mayo Park lift station is still in place, working as expected. Again, kudos to Water Wastewater Department and with assistance from the LSPD rounding on those pumps just to make sure that everything is functioning correctly. Director Transberg and Water Wastewater Manager Pete Burns have spent a lot of time in the last week or so working with engineers on both a short-term and a long-term plan to removing the bypass and getting the lift station up and running. I'll be succinct in saying that the equipment at the lift station has all been severely damaged or destroyed. Pumps, control panel, components. Alternate lift station sites will be evaluated for a long-term solution. And we'll be working with Justin Nielsen, our emergency manager, and FEMA on how best to approach the long-term fix. So the goal is to get the bypass out as quickly as we can, as safely as we can. Tomorrow, and Wednesday, I have League of Minnesota City Policy Committee meetings in the mornings. Personnel and Budget Committee has been meeting every week to discuss the 2025 budget. I want to give kudos to the Sueur Baseball Association, all the volunteers and businesses who made the Fox 9 Ball Tour visit a great success. It was an awesome event, a lot of fun. Tomorrow, MMPA will be hosting their annual meeting here at the Fire Hall in the afternoon, followed by their annual dinner and presentation out at Scenic Escape Barn tomorrow night. Looking forward to that. Speaking of Giant Days, it is coming up August 1st through the 4th. They've got a great calendar that was just launched today, so that will take place before our next meeting. So just encouraging the community to get out to Giant Days and hope for good weather. Next meeting will be August 12th. We'll be having a public hearing. Mr. Bean Fang will be back with us at the next meeting, 429 for the North 4th Street project. There will also be an open house related to the North 4th Street reconstruction project that will be held here on August 1st from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And mailers have gone out to all the property owners along that corridor. Finally, just for some council rumination, as you recall, there was a lively conversation last year in July about food trucks and the proposed ordinance that came before City Council. Over the last couple of weeks, city staff have received quite a bit of feedback from the community on food truck activity in town, and questions about how close they can be to businesses, how long they can operate, whether there are any checks and balances, assuming best intentions from vendors, but also wanting to make sure that the city is aware of the businesses. And so I am, City Clerk Daney and I are working on an updated draft of that ordinance, and I've spoken with the mayor about it and expect to bring back a draft ordinance for City Council review at the August 12th meeting. Oh, and finally, budget workshop. So Personnel and Budget Committee would like to hold a work session for City Council to discuss the 2025 budget before the preliminary consideration of the budget. And right now we have penciled in Friday morning, August 23rd at 9 a.m. the work session. If there are any immediately known conflicts, please let Director Graff or me know. But it'll be a public meeting, a work session, a little over 2 weeks before the prelim. Similar to the work session that we had last year for the budget. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have a question. Did you ever get any quotes for spraying the park?
Yes, so we will be spraying Legion Park before Giant Days.
Perfect.
Yes.
Why didn't you bring that up?
Oh, sorry. We will be spraying, Public Works will be spraying the park
Perfect.
for Giant Days.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Mr.
Can
Schrader.
you repeat the date and time for the 4th Street Health?
August 1st, it's a Thursday. Here in council chambers, 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roby. We appreciate your update and appreciate your information. This now takes us into the regular agenda. And first thing on the regular agenda, of course, is item 8A, resolution R 2024-040, adoption of the water facility plans. Mr. Roby, we just had quite an extended presentation from our city administrator, city engineer, but maybe you can break it down real quick for us.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. There's only one slide for this, but Mr. Beanfang is still here if anyone wants to pick on him any further. Wastewater improvements are necessary for the deficiencies in the water treatment and collection system. This is well known. This is documented as part of the North 4th Street project. The City Council has also been made aware for several years now of the need for improvements to this, the communication system and control system at the wastewater plant, at the wastewater lift station collection system. The Clean Water Revolving Fund through the state of Minnesota offers low interest financing that will provide significant cost savings to the city for both of these projects by marrying them together from a funding standpoint. The resolution speaks to this, and as part of the process for filing this paperwork with the state of Minnesota, we are required to submit a resolution adopting the wastewater treatment facility plans that are presented to council tonight. And that's exactly what the resolution speaks to.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Just one, just wanted to verify that the mail lift station is not part of this. That's going to be completely separate.
That's correct. The mail park lift station has been removed from this because we will be managing through the emergency response.
Thank you. Good question. Anybody else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adopt our 2024-04, the adoption of wastewater treatment facility plans. Thank you, Councilmember Tui, seconded by Councilmember Sullivan. Anybody have any comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item 8B, resolution R 2024-041, the Oak Terrace conditional use permit amendment. Mr. Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The planning commission reviewed this at the July 11th meeting earlier this month. Oak Terrace Assisted Living Facility on South 4th Street has applied for an amendment to their conditional use permit. The city granted a conditional use permit to Oak Terrace back in 2014, prior to the construction of the facility. And in actually early 2023, the owners of Oak Terrace approached city staff about adding 8 additional units to the northern wing of the building. There was space on the property to construct these extra 8 units. It just wasn't done earlier up until now. Based upon demand, they would like to expand by 8 units, and so they've requested an amendment to their conditional use permit allowing for that 8-unit expansion. From a building materials, a parking, zoning, grading, landscaping, stormwater standpoint, the plans are all consistent with city requirements. And so the staff recommendation to the planning commission was to recommend approval of the amendment of the conditional use permit allowing the terrace to expand. As I said, planning commission reviewed it. At their last meeting, they recommended approval of this amendment to city council. So here it is in front of you all tonight. Of note, the EDA did consider at their meeting this evening a motion to ask bond council to generate an amendment to the TIF district for Oak Terrace. So Oak Terrace was also subject to the TIF district, which has been bringing tax funds back to the facility. The preliminary math on that has already been run and would, in theory, extend the term on that TIF district an additional 3 years, which is advised right now by our fiscal agent to extend that term. So the EDA has asked bond council to draw that up. The actual TIF agreement amendment will be brought forward to city council at the second meeting in August. You'll have to go and get EDA approval first earlier that evening, and then it will come to city council.
Thank you, Mr. Roby. Anybody have any questions or concerns regarding the Oak Terrace conditional use permit? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution R 2024-041, approving the conditional use permit for Oak Terrace.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Schrader. Seconded by Councilmember Tui. Any other discussion, comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Roby, this is an added item, 8C, Sass Farms request. You know, I don't like added items at the last minute, but we all like our corn.
I understand. So I'm willing to accept the responsibility for this one and the community's benefit. Each year, for a number of years now, Sass Farms has utilized a portion of the city-owned parking lot along the north side of Bridge Street between Main and North Second, or Main and Second Street, to set up their daily sweet corn sales. Each year, we do ask Sass Farms to request city council approval to utilize that space because it is a public parking area. And I was contacted by Sass Farms over the weekend that they would the crop is ready. They'll begin sweet corn sales tomorrow. If you've driven by there, the tent is already up. So I understand this is a little bit cart before horse, but here we are. And so the request from staff is that there would be a motion to approve Snaps Farms' request to utilize the proposed public space for the sun sweet corn during this summer.
Thank you. Anybody have a question?
No, so moved.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion by Councilmember Tui, second by Councilmember Sullivan. Any other discussion, comments, or concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Reports, at this time, council members, this is your opportunity to share what's going on in the community, what's going on with your commissions, and as always, we will not start with Mr. Huntington, we will start with Mr. Schreiber.
I attended a planning commission meeting on the 11th, in addition to the Oak Terrace CUP amendment that we just voted on. The planning commission picked 2 dates for the future of the city forum in order to get feedback from the school on meeting room availability. Have we heard anything back on that yet?
I don't have an update from
Okay.
Mr. Nielsen.
I attended a county commissioners meeting on the 18th for a MnDOT presentation and an HRA board meeting on the 17th. I've got the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Conference up in Wake Park this Wednesday through Friday. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Schreiber. Councilmember Sullivan.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing from Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Tui.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams.
There will be, I will be attending a drug hospital board meeting up in Laconia next Monday. We did have HRA meeting, like Mr. Schiller alluded to, and we do have applicants for the ED position, so that interview process will start on Wednesday. And want to thank everyone who participated and attended the Summer in the Valley.
Thank you. And as far as my comments tonight, I don't have much to share other than I want everybody to enjoy Giant Weekend. Hope we have a good crowd. I hope we have good weather. And I want to congratulate the Scrubs for accepting their grand commercial status for the parade. So looking forward to seeing them. With that said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Councilmember Tui. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.